Welcome to today's update video. This is Hurricane Blas. Before we get to Blas, let's take a look at what else is going on in the tropics. We have this was Invest 96E that I mentioned in my previous video that was recently designated by the National Hurricane Center about 1/3 at the 21Z advisory, excuse me. It's organized surprisingly quickly despite the lack of model support. And it's likely to continue west, and then eventually turns to west-northwest. System will move over Blas's cold wake. In May, the GFS will have some dry air issues. The GFS and European have been off and on in terms of intensity. The system ranging from 980 millibars to 940 millibars. And regardless, I think the system has a decent chance to become a major hurricane this year, and will probably certainly at least attain minimal hurricane intensity as the system transverses west over Blas's cold wake, and then eventually maybe move a little bit south of Blas's strength and have an opportunity to strengthen before eventually also recurving out to see like what Blas is supposed to do. So it's kind of a typical straight runner to recurve which you typically see. The question is how far and when this recurve, if it does recurve in the Central Pacific or not. There's still some uncertainty in regards to that. If you look at it, you can see it looks pretty well organized. The latest T numbers from SAB and TNF here are T2.0. The system is a little bit smaller than Blas, so it may be a little bit more susceptible to swings in intensity than the Blas was. Anyhow, let's now take a look at the bigger story, and that's Hurricane Blas itself. And you can see that's kind of as a very classic buzzsaw look. You can see that well-defined eye, a very warm eye temperature of about 16°, which is one of the warmer eyes I've seen in this basin. Probably since, I don't know, maybe Hurricane Eugene back in 2011. Well, not counting Patricia, of course, but anyway, you can see a large, well-defined eye with a very well-organized circular structure, kind of that classic textbook hurricane look. You can see almost like an annular structure. This system's located in the environment we would typically see annual hurricanes. You can see some low wind shear, not super warm, but like 27, 28 seawalls that like these straight runners in the Eastern Pacific tend to have. Especially at this time of year, you can see some very cold cloud tops. You can see it's actually, for something like this, at this point in the year, is actually probably a little bit early, at least compared to climatology. You can see a large central dense overcast that's relatively thick. You can see there's also some dry stratocumulus air aloft. You can definitely see it very well on water vapor imagery. You can see, I think this hurricane should be able, these annular systems tend to be able to maintain their structure for at least another 12 to 24 hours. Sometimes maybe more, since shear is going to be low for the next 3 days. The system kind of continues west-northwest and eventually turns northwest. And while this system will be rounding the ridge, the cutoff low that's actually steering the system isn't going to be particularly strong. So wind shear won't be particularly high in the later time periods. The system may spin down very slowly in a very pretty manner for that reason. In general, I do think the system will remain a major hurricane for at least another 24 hours, possibly longer, and kind of maintain its annular characteristics and rack up some accumulated cyclone energy units that this basin desperately needs. So here's the backdrop. You can see the latest ANC intensity is at 110 knots. It was at 120 knots last night. The last two advisory cycles have been at the last 3 advisory cycles have been at 110 knots, but the fact that the system has the warm medium gray eye, or white medium gray eye, and a black rain, and that's also surrounded by black, with the black CDO. Those two things, knowing how well I know the Dvorak technique, leads to a T6.5. So as a result, I do think there's a chance that this structure can persistently increase the intensity to around 120 or even possibly up to 125 knots, which would make this a Category 4 hurricane. It's currently a high-end Category 3 hurricane at the upcoming 3Z advisory. It's kind of actually hard to say. I will point out, though, is that you can see, well, I'll point out a few things. Well, first of all, the stable air surrounding the system. The second thing I'd point out is that the GOES 13, the NOAA photo I just showed you was GOES 11. The GOES 13 is a little bit different. As you can see, it shows a cool eye, but thicker CEO, just kind of pointing that out. Now let's take a look at the model runs. And here's Blas. Blas recurves out to sea. Then the present 40 becomes Cecilia. Struggles a little bit due to dry entertainment. You can see kind of that funky structure with it that signifies dry air. But given the fact that Blas is also mixing out some of the dry air, this seems a little bit unlikely. But even though it's still also moving over Blas's cold wake, so it's kind of hard. So it's kind of a trade-off situation here. And regardless, the GFS has been quite radical on how much dry air will actually affect Blas. I mean, shears are going to be very low for the next several days. That is one thing we do know for sure. Anyhow, I think then eventually later in the period we hit a few more tropical cyclones, and they sort of hit at Darby, Estelle, and Frank, the GFS. Anyhow, let's take a look at the European. The European actually blocks Blas a little bit uncharacteristic because they're overdoing the interaction between Blas and 4E. I still insist that Blas will probably recurve out to sea. And then regardless, you have Cecilia that actually becomes a rather robust hurricane north of Hawaii. Then behind that you have a Hurricane Darby. Well, not a robust hurricane, about 978 millibars. And they also moved them a little bit further north than most of the other models, so it makes some sense that the European isn't so bullish on intensity. Anyhow, that's it. And then you have a Hurricane Darby, and then you have some of the ones that have a hint, like back around here of Estelle, but this one doesn't. In about 10 days. Anyhow, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Bye.